I'm not sure how to begin with this, and as unbelievable and far-fetched as this may sound, this event was very much real. And I also know that this will haunt me and my son for the rest of our lives. I think it's safe to say that he was emotionally scarred by this, which makes me feel horrible. But I have to get this out there. Well, I guess I should start from the very beginning if that's the case. It all started 12 years ago. My son was only 8 years old at the time. And at the same time as when his mom left, I know that he wouldn't be able to understand why the divorce happened. All I could do was be the best father that I could be to him. I wish I could have done more, however, but that doesn't matter at this point. I should get along with my story. Like I was saying, my son was only 8 years old at the time, and his birthday was just on the horizon, and I wanted to give him one of the best gifts he could have gotten. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with a brand known as Fazbear Entertainment, but they are a family-friendly brand that run these family diners across the state. Anyways, the brand has these animated characters that represent it. There are Freddy Fazbear, the mascot of the brand and the main star of the show, you could say. He's a cartoonish brown bear that wears a black top hat and bow tie. The other ones are Bonnie, who is a blue rabbit with a red bow tie, Chica, who wears a bib, and the other one is called Foxy, who's dressed like a pirate. That's as much information as I know about the characters. Well, Fazbear Entertainment would sell these stuffed plush toys of the animal characters, and lots of kids, including my son, adored them. I guess they were what you would call a hot item nowadays. My son loved the Fazbear brand, especially the characters, so for his birthday, I was hoping to get him some of those plush toys. Unfortunately, I couldn't find them anywhere. They were sold out at most stores I checked. When public stores weren't an option, I ended up browsing the internet looking for some. But I couldn't find them anywhere, and I almost lost hope. Until I came across something called Freddy Fazbear's Toy Chest. I clicked on the item, and I was shocked to see the item was a large toy chest that contained the characters of Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and even Foxy. I clicked the price, and it was actually pretty cheap, only about $50 plus tax. It seemed too good to be true. I checked the condition of the toys, and it said they were mint condition, which was fine. However, there was an interesting message left by the seller. It wrote, "I can't keep these things anymore. I'll take whatever price, I just need to get rid of them." I know that sounds cliche and fishy, but honest to God, I didn't really think or care that much. I had to get my hands on these things before somebody else did. So I ended up ordering. If only I had known. Lucky for me, the package was delivered relatively fast, which was what I needed since my son's birthday was only a few days away at the time. Probably could have done 2-day shipping, but it worked out either way. My son's birthday came. I still remember the little happy smile when he opened his gift. I don't think I'd ever seen such joy in his face, and that made me happy. However, there was one thing out of place when I ordered the toy box. It still contained the 4 main mascot plushies, like it said, but the box had a 5th plushie inside that I didn't recognize. This one looks similar to the Freddy Fazbear plush, but there were some differences. This plush was yellow, and its hat and bow tie were a bright purple. But the thing that was most interesting was this one didn't have those silly cartoonish eyes like the other ones. It just had these black sockets. Odd, I thought. I never heard of a yellow one. But I decided it was a pleasant surprise, and it was another toy for my son to play with. I know you might say the black eyes were a red flag, but back in the olden days, even nowadays, most kids' teddy bears have black eyes. So I let it slip my arms. My son accepted the gift with open arms, which made me feel relieved, but only for a short time. Things went smoothly for the next couple of days. My son loved the brand new toys and continuously played with the toys. He seemed very intrigued about the weird yellow bear plush that came with the other ones. I still didn't quite understand what the yellow bear was or what character it was supposed to represent. I usually tried to blow it off, thinking about the fact that my son was happy and that was all that mattered. Things were fine, up until about 2 days after, while I was working at my desk in my bedroom, when my son walked in and approached me. I wasn't sure what it was, but by the way he looked, he seemed like he was anxious or nervous. I turned to him and asked him what was wrong. He told me in a nervous tone, "Dad, Fredbear has been moving around." I asked him who Fredbear was, and he told me the yellow bear was named Fredbear. I asked him how he knew that was his name, and the next sentence he said, to put it plainly, disturbed me. He told me. I told him to just play with the other toys, and I would talk to Fredbear about moving around his room. Once he left, I tried to continue focusing on my work, but I couldn't, not after what Benjamin had told me. That night, I lay awake in my bed, reflecting on my son's bizarre complaint. I tried to blow it off as him just using his imagination, but by the way he came in, and the tone in his voice, I felt slight concern, but I was able to look past it. It wasn't until the next day, when me and my son were sitting at the dinner table, he told me, "Dad, Fredbear has been watching me. I almost choked on my food," and I looked at him like he was crazy. I asked him why he said that, and he told me in a quiet tone, "His eyes always follow me." I didn't know what to say or how to respond, but Benjamin didn't seem to be looking for an answer as he continued eating. The things he was saying were creeping me out, truthfully. That night, I once again laid in my bed, thinking about what my son had been saying these past few days, and the miraculous random extra plushie my son kept calling Fredbear, whatever that meant. But I began to think, what if my son is just messing with me? And what if this is all just a prank he's trying to pull on me? It was a possibility, and that was enough to ease my nerves and help me fall asleep. The next night was my breaking point. It was 7 p.m., and me and my son were once again sitting at the dinner table eating, while a thunderstorm went on outside. Suddenly, without warning, my son looked at me and asked me, "Dad, why did Mom stop loving you?" I dropped my fork and looked at my son in disbelief. What he said struck a nerve in me, and I asked him, "Why would you say something like that?" He looked at me and said in a quiet tone, "Fredbear told me." That was it. I had enough of that stupid bear. I got up from the dinner table and stomped upstairs, down the hall, all the way to my son's room. That was it. I was throwing that damn bear in the trash. I swung open the door to my son's room, but stopped when I thought I heard something. Breathing. My blood turned cold. Instead of turning on the light, I used the faint moonlight coming from my son's window to see a giant dark silhouette crouching in the corner of the room. And as I looked around, I realized there wasn't just one, but there were 4 other dark silhouettes as well, sitting in the darkness. As I stared into the darkness, the thunder outside boomed and lightning lit up the sky and flashed through the window, revealing the silhouettes, and what I saw still haunts me to this day. It was the animatronic characters from Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, but these weren't the same friendly kid animals that sang songs to children. These were horrifying. I saw a familiar brown bear sporting a top hat and bow tie. His jaw was filled with sharp teeth. His body was torn from head to toe. Then I saw the rabbit, Bonnie. His blue fur was torn, wires protruding from his ears. His fingertips were replaced with sharp screws, completed with a row of terrifying teeth. Then there was Chica, the yellow chicken, now ripped up and torn. Her beak was filled to the brim with several pairs of horrifying teeth. And finally there was Foxy. Like the other ones, he was torn, but seemed to be even more damaged than the other ones. His metal snout was completely exposed, and the casing had been torn off. Along with the sharp claws on his left hand, his right hand was replaced with a dangerous-looking hook. He just watched me with these cold eyes that cut right through the darkness. These creatures were something only someone could see in their worst nightmares. I couldn't process what to do. And to be honest, I didn't know what to do at all. I couldn't even process what I was seeing. As the lightning flashed, I was horrified to see these things started moving. Standing up to their full height, the creatures towered over me like giant predators staring down at their prey. And then I heard from behind me soft footsteps, and I heard my son's voice say, "Dad?" I watched the creature's eyes move from me and lock onto something behind me. It soon came to me that these things were staring at my son. Once I realized this, my terror turned to panic. I yelled behind me as I slowly backed away from the door. "Run! Benjamin, run!" I spun around and ran, with Benjamin in front of me. We bolted down the stairs. I was filled with terror as I heard something gaining speed from behind us. I could see the silhouette of the bear close behind. The other ones were not too far behind as well. We had to get to the front door fast. It was so dark, however. I couldn't navigate in the dark as well as I should have been able to. Probably because we were being chased, the only thing I was focused on was getting me and my son to safety. I soon realized that we weren't running to the front door. Instead, we were running to the back section of our house, and there was no way we could get back to the front door or the front living room. We had to hide. Eventually, me and Benjamin made it to the secondary back living room, in the back of the house. I decided me and Benjamin could hide in the closet. I opened the doors of the old closet and started moving boxes from it, allowing room to fit inside. Now, the next decision I made is what you might call questionable. I told Benjamin to stay in the closet and don't leave until I got him and came back, and to be as quiet as possible. I promised him I would be back as fast as I could. I closed the closet and quietly made my way to the doorway of the room. Stepping back out into the dark hallways was too risky. I needed to get to my office, because I had a telephone there. The only other telephone was in the other living room, and as I mentioned before, I couldn't get there. I then remembered I could get to my office through the kitchen. All I needed to do was silently go there, sneak to the door that connected the back of the kitchen to my office. I silently walked to the kitchen doorway, however. I stopped as I heard something. There was something in the kitchen. I quietly peered in the doorway and saw the chicken, Chica. She was digging through the cabinets and cupboards, moving plates and pots around and onto the floor. I froze. It's looking for us, I thought to myself with a shiver. I had to move fast. I couldn't let them find Benjamin. I had to get to the kitchen to leave. As I looked around the kitchen, I noticed large glass shards from one of the plates laying close to the doorway. I cautiously and quietly took out the glass shard and threw it into the doorway of the next room over, making a small shattering sound once it hit the floor. The chicken's head snapped in the direction of the noise and swiftly walked into the other room, looking for the source of the noise. I took this opportunity to quietly make it up to my office door. I silently opened it and slipped inside. I shut the doorway as quietly as possible and locked it. Not that I was sure that lock would do anything against those things out there. I decided not to turn on the lights in case that thing somehow could see the light from under the door. I had to feel around from my office desk trying to find the telephone, and luckily I found it. Using the slight moonlight from on the window, I managed to dial 911, lifted the phone to my ear, and was relieved to hear an operator answer. I had to improvise my situation a little bit. I can tell the operator a bunch of animatronics were trying to kill me and my son. No way in hell she would have sent someone over, and probably would have just assumed this was a prank call of some sort. Instead, I just told her I was trapped inside my house with my 8-year-old son, and there were several intruders in there with us. I felt my heart drop when she told me that it would take some time for a unit to arrive due to the heavy thunderstorm and rain outside. I begged them to get there as fast as they could and hung up. That was it. I now had to take matters into my own hands. I reached down under my desk and took out the handgun I kept hidden under it, and loaded it. Instead of stepping back into the kitchen, I used the door leading into the hallway, gun in hand. The hallway was only illuminated by lightning flashing through the windows of the rooms that led into this hallway. I started checking the spare bedrooms leading from the hall. When I was checking the final room, I checked under the bed when the thunder boomed, and at the same time, I barely heard a slight second sound coming from the closet behind me. The sound was like a small tapping noise. I turned around and was horrified to see the rabbit emerge from the closet, and it stared at me. I did my best to turn my anger from terror. I raised my gun and fired 2 shots at the thing. It raised its robotic clawed hands, seemingly trying to shield its face. I didn't manage to shoot it in the face, however, I apparently managed to shoot off one of its fingers. This made it back off and examine its hand. This appeared to anger it, and it full-on charged me. I managed to evade him as it swung its claws and tore into the bed sheets on the bed behind me. I bolted from the door and slammed it closed behind me. I ran into the secondary living room in the back of the house once again. I had to get my son and get out of here. I burst into the living room and quietly called for Benjamin. I walked over to the closet and opened it up, and I was relieved to see my son, still there, curled up in a ball. I had never seen such fear on his face. I told him to come on, and pulled him onto his feet. I pulled him with me as we tried to make our way to the front door of the house. We took the route I had taken earlier through the kitchen. However, I noticed the chicken was gone. As we worked our way towards the front of the house, I noticed how quiet things had gotten. And now the only sound was the thunder outside and the rain pounding against the windows. This put me on edge, and I was more cautious about how much noise me and my son were making. We didn't encounter any of the other creatures, however, which was relieving, yet scary. Eventually we made our way to the front living room and to the front door. The coast was clear, until I noticed my son had stopped behind me. I turned to him, telling him to hurriedly come on, but he just stood there in silence, staring at the direction of the front door. I was confused until I looked where he was looking as well, and I realized what he was looking at. In the darkness, I could now make out a giant silhouette of something standing in front of the front door. And as the lightning flashed, I felt my life flash before my eyes as well. Standing in front of the door was a giant creature, about 11 feet tall, larger than life, staring down at me with crimson red eyes. It was gold, with tears all over its body. Its jaw looked big enough to swallow someone whole. It had razor fangs, not only in its jaws, but on his secondary mouth, placed in the center of its stomach. But the thing I noticed instantly was a familiar purple top hat and bow tie. I spun around and grabbed my son up, sprinting to and up the staircase. Though I could only see dark behind me, I could still hear the thumping footsteps of the creature chasing us up the stairs at terrifying speed. I was shocked that the staircase didn't collapse under the weight of this thing. However, I could tell I had a hard time getting up the stairs. Once upstairs, I ran into my bedroom and locked the door, with me and Benjamin inside. The only thing I had to barricade my door was a small nightstand at the side of my bed. I stood close to the door, gun at the ready. I told Benjamin to get behind me, which he did. When we waited, I was expecting to hear some sort of loud thumping charging towards the door, but no, nothing. Suddenly, I heard a noise that will forever haunt me and always echo in my mind. It was a deep, terrifying, evil laughter that sounded like it came from the devil himself. Suddenly, my sliding closet doors ripped open, and as my son screamed, I saw 2 red eyes staring at us. The creature emerged from my closet and made its way towards us. I pushed Benjamin out of the way right before it managed to knock me back onto my bed. The creature kneeled down and positioned its head right at my feet. It opened its huge jaws, and I was terrified to see a secondary pair of teeth behind its first. The creature tried to clamp down on my legs, but it managed to stick a pillow between its jaws. Its teeth ripped into the pillow with ease, tearing it in half. After this failed, it tried to take a swing at me with one of its giant clawed hands. I then pulled up the blankets and sheets as a means of a shield of some sorts. The creature tore through the sheets like paper, but luckily it didn't injure me. I screamed to my son to run outside, but as he ran out of the room, the creature noticed and moved from the bed and quickly ran outside after my son. I screamed no as I ran outside after it. My son had only enough time to get to the bathroom at the end of the hallway near the stairs and lock the door. The creature began pounding on the door and clawing at it. At that moment, everything seemed to slow down, as I could hear my son screaming in terror. I couldn't let this happen. I couldn't. At this moment, I didn't care what happened to me. I wouldn't let this monster hurt my son. My one and only son. My one thing I had left after his mother had. I mustered all the courage I had inside me and charged down the hall towards the creature with a yell of anger. I ran into the creature, slamming my entire body into its side. This caused the thing to stumble back and lose its balance, and by some stroke of luck, it ended up stumbling back onto the staircase, causing it to fall backwards down the stairs. The sound of it crashing down the stairs was so loud, I was so sure it could be heard from 3 houses over. I yelled for Benjamin, asking him if he was okay. He slowly opened the door. I instantly grabbed my son and picked him up, embracing him tightly. I let my son cry into my shoulder, which hurt like hell, but I didn't really care at that moment. Then, I heard the most amazing sound ever. Police sirens, along with red and blue lights, flashing through the windows. I ran downstairs with my son, almost tripping, as we made our way outside, where 3 cop cars were waiting. The officers came out of their cars. One of the officers took Benjamin, while the other one helped me with my injuries, as well as calling for medical attention. 3 other officers went inside the house, guns drawn. The rest of the night was a blur. Most of it was spent in the hospital. You can probably guess that this experience emotionally scarred me and my son for life. I feel so horrible he had to grow up with such a painful memory. He was given a lot of therapy throughout the years after that. Unfortunately, this incident caused permanent damage to my shoulder, but I was able to live with it. My son is now 20 years old and in college. He even has a girlfriend, which I'm happy about since I was worried he wouldn't be able to develop any long-lasting and real relationships. You're probably wondering what happened to those creatures. Well, when the police did an investigation of the house, there was no sign of the intruders. However, the house was torn apart, but the only thing that the police were able to find was a purple hat and bow tie, sitting on the living room floor. I can barely sleep at night, knowing those creatures are still out there somewhere, and sometimes I think I can hear that laugh coming from somewhere in my house.